If Caleros is really done, this is going to be a long season. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Bomber video. Did not go the way we were hoping. 21-13 loss. Riders win the Banjo Bowl over in Winnipeg, and there's a lot to talk about this game, and it's unfortunate in the sense of that this game, the first half of this game, actually goes pretty decent for Winnipeg. It's not perfect, as I think there were some times I thought the offense could have produced a little bit more, but all in all, you went into halftime with a lead, and then we lost all that. It's one of those things. I don't know what it's been this year, but the second half for the Bombers has just been a problem offensively. It just seems that, again, Jason Hogan, defenses adjust to Jason Hogan after the first half, and then in the second half, it's just not where it needs to be. Now, there's a lot of things that go into this game, so I want to go through it. So firstly, in the pregame, Vanderpool is in. There is a God. Ontario Wilson. I was very happy to see Ontario Wilson back. And I felt that was good. I thought that the O-line today, it's funny. I thought that the O-line today was an improvement over last week in terms of that they gave up just one sack, I think, here. At least this is what I see listed. It's funny. There's one sack there, but obviously they don't have the hit by CJ Rivas in there, which we'll get to that. But let's kind of go through the game, just to kind of unpack everything. So starting the game, Brady Oliveira would have a very nice run. We go back and forth a little bit. Zach Caleros takes his first sack of the game. The Riders, though, will start to push when they go back on offense. And then Retta Cramdy gets a pick on Trevor Harris, and the Bombers get the ball moving the other way. There's more running game today. That was one of my complaints after last week, was the lack of run game. And though it was not perfect, specifically once Strevler went in later, it was just a little bit too predictable. And I don't blame them for running the ball there. That was a bad situation, everything that happened, and Strevler having to go in, and this game just showed that Strevler was bad tonight. He was bad. But Brady Oliveira's average was only 4.2, 20 rushes for 83 yards, but I was glad that he rushed, because that was something that needed to happen more. So I don't blame Jason Hogan for the amount that it was rushed, because I don't think he intended to do it quite as much as he did. I think his hand was just a little bit forced once the Caleros injury had occurred. But Castillo hits a 39-yard field goal, making it 3-0 Winnipeg. And I don't know why it has some other text in here, but near the end of the first quarter, Willie Jefferson gets a nice knockdown. But we get gets a nice block down. But we take a penalty for hands to the face on a block, so that's not good. Bombers took a penalty to kind of end that first quarter. Second quarter, Saskatchewan fumbles the ball on the 12-yard line, and Kyrie Wilson grabs it. First down, Winnipeg. And then I see here that we weren't really able to then move that down and capitalize. And then it's funny, I have notes. I have incomplete. Yeah, there was one instance where the Riders it looked like a completed pass, which he then fumbles. But then, no, it was from the play before, where they eventually ruled that it was an incomplete pass and whatnot, which as much as I was annoyed, I think that's the right call, to be just being honest, bias aside, everything. Brett Lother hits a 20-yard field goal, making this a 3-3 game. Bombers drive. There's some good runs for Brady Oliveira, but Zach Caleros then gets the first down himself. And then with a nice pass for Ontario Wilson, he gets his first touchdown with Winnipeg since rejoining the team. I think Ontario Wilson, let me just confirm here. I've been a big fan of Ontario Wilson. I said a lot of strong words in our preview that I think Ontario Wilson, out of guys that have receivers that have come back from the NFL into the CFL, Ontario Wilson is better than a Joe, and it's not close. And I'm not going to lie, if this game is anything to go by, Saskatchewan won this game. A Joe was 7 receptions for 7 yards. He averaged 1 yard on all 7 of his receptions. Like, he received the ball more than anyone for Saskatchewan, and yet he averaged 1 yard. That is pathetic. Like, even their leading receiver, like Robustelli, only had 3 receptions. Kajan Johnson had 6 for 69 yards. He had 7 on 7 yards. It's pathetic. Ontario Wilson, on the other hand, 5 receptions for 89 yards and 1 touchdown. And he had some pretty darn good catches. But is what it is. And then, let's see here. Conversion is good, which makes it a 10-3 game. Riders go on to offense, and there's a good ball that is knocked down by Tony Jones. It was nice to see him step up in that regard. Bombers get their offense going once again, and there's a huge pass for Nick Dembski. The Bombers would actually fumble the ball shortly after this. However, they do recover it on the very same play. Bit of a lucky one there, to which some of the guys around us was like, man, like, Dembski, he's just doing everything. And then Dembski goes offside, and I'm like, yeah, I guess he is doing everything, positive and negative. But Sergio Castillo then hits a 34-yard field goal, making this 13-3 Winnipeg. There's a good knockdown by Willie Jefferson once again, and the Bombers take a holding penalty on a Rider punt. Caleros then tries going for a deep ball. It ends up being a bit of a pick. Again, it's one of those things where there's not really much of a better spot Caleros can put that ball. It is what it is, but it's essentially an arm punt when it gets thrown that distance, so it is what it is. But Brett Lothar, the Riders drive down close enough for Brett Lothar to hit a 35-yard field goal, making it 13-6 Winnipeg going into half. Now, I felt like we left a little bit of points on the board. Like, I don't know. I wanted to have a little bit more of a lead than that. But all in all, I thought defensively that this was just night and day difference. The Bombers did the 2 biggest differences in this game. Firstly, the Bombers shut that running game down. They really did. Saskatchewan could not get the running game going like they did last week, and that was really, really key. The other thing they did was that they were tighter in their pass protection. They were a little bit more not pass protection. They were a little bit more tighter in their zone coverage. I'm not gonna lie. I think Jordan Younger properly prepared the guys for this game. I think Retta Cramdy coming back in was a huge boost to that secondary, and having him back with the linebackers. And so I was very pleased with that. But at halftime, Bomber legend Tyrone Jones was inducted into the Bomber Ring of Honor, as he is the all-time Bomber sack leader. So number 35 is up in the rafters at Princess Auto Stadium. Very much deserved. Which moves us into the third quarter. The Riders would go and they'd push. Bombers rush defense looking a lot better again, like I've been saying. The Riders would get their hands on the face of Willie Jefferson, and they'd take a 10-yard penalty, and then Caleros would go for a big pass for Ontario Wilson, but this is picked off by Fields, and he brings it the other way, and AJ Ouellette gets the touchdown for Saskatchewan. However, Brett Lothar would miss the conversion here, which means that it is 13-12 Winnipeg. And then it would go back and forth a little bit, and then there would be a play where Zach Caleros would have the ball in the backfield. And Zach Caleros takes a blindside hit right to the side of the head. It was the crown of CJ Revis that hit him. It hit him straight in the head. It was the main point of contact. It was... I did not like this hit. Now, I'm going to start with, I don't believe it was intentional. I do not. The notion that this is not a hit to the head, if this isn't a hit to the head, I would kind of like to know what is, in the sense of the first part of CJ Revis's body that touches Zach Caleros is the crown of his helmet on the side of Caleros. That is textbook targeting penalty right there. Now, and I have a few reasons for this, because I'm not going to lie, I was really upset about this hit. And I've had a lot of time to kind of sit here and just kind of had to go through my veins. And there's been a lot of plays in this game where I was frustrated, but, I can understand that, maybe a little bit biased, Like, for example, I thought the defensive pass interference near the end of the game was really, really weak. I still think it's weak, but I can at least see it in the realm of them calling that, even if I do think it is a little bit on the weak side. Do I think he puts on a little bit of a sell job? Yeah. Do I think some guys on the Bombers have done that before? Absolutely. It's a thing that happens, especially with pass interference. But I can get past that. Bias aside, I still don't like this hit. Now, obviously, this sucks from besides the hit itself. Like, this sucks in the sense of Zach Collaros' history. Now, I don't believe that you should punish this hit based off the history of Zach Collaros, as I think you should punish it as a set standard. My problem here is that CJ Rivas is blocked by nobody on this play, which that's a whole separate problem. The fact that CJ Rivas was able to walk into the backfield with no one blocking him, nothing, and gets a hit on Zach Collaros, that is a failure in and of itself. However, what this does mean is that you can't really make the argument that this was a heat of the moment play. He blitzed wide, and he had all the time in the world. He had all the space in the world. He could have walked up to Zach Collaros and gave him a hug, and nobody would have stopped him. No one laid a finger on him. No one even went for a block and missed. He was in full control of his own body. What this also means is that CJ Rivas makes absolutely no effort to try to lower his body and avoid like any sort of incidental contact with the head. And the other problem that I have here, and I have it on film, so I'll show you here, is that CJ Rivas before impact tilts his head up and raises the crown of his helmet right before impact. So if you see here, this is it right here. Let me just make sure I have it on the slide here. Right before impact, see his head right now is at an even level. But you're going to see right before impact, right there, you see him tilt the head up, the crown of his helmet, striking Zach Collaros straight in the head. So, and that's the thing. I don't think that this is intentional. However, it is extremely negligent. To which, I'm not going to lie, I don't really like CJ Rivas' response to this, to where he was, apparently he was asked by the media, well, what do you want me to do? My answer would be, maybe don't smoke a quarterback in the head with the crown of your helmet. Maybe that's too much to ask for. I don't think this is the worst hit that we've ever seen. I don't think it is. However, this is a hit, especially since it seems that he finds no issue with it and he can't wrap his head around where this could potentially be a problem or potential negligence or whatever. I think I think the CFL should be looking at least a fine here, if not a 1-game suspension. And I know some people are going to disagree with that, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with me. But it's not like his chest doesn't end up hitting his chest. It does after head hits head, granted. It's one of those things though that I remember when I played football, when I was taught, you're taught to try to tackle in that chest to high thigh region. And this is a safety thing. They don't teach you tackling up here and up here. They don't teach you tackling like in the knees. They don't. This is why targeting penalties are specifically for when the crown of the helmet strikes the head or the knees. And so it's one of those things though where I think if this goes unpunished in terms, because he ends up getting I think it was roughing the passer, 15-yard penalty. But it takes him out of the game. It totally does. If this goes unpunished past that, in the sense of if there's no fine or there's no suspension, I believe this sets a dangerous precedent. And this is one of those things where football is a dangerous sport. It is. And there are rules in place specifically for guys like quarterbacks to ensure their safety. You can't tackle a quarterback the way you tackle anyone else. And maybe people don't like that. And maybe people are like, it should just be anyone. And fair enough. Maybe that's your stance. However, that's not the stance of the CFL rulebook. And so I'm curious to see exactly what comes of this. I'd love to know your comments down below. If you guys disagree with me, that's totally fine. This is just kind of my take on things, based on everything I've seen, based on the replay that I've seen, given time to kind of sit in it, and rather than just pure heat of the moment. But yeah, I did not like this hit one bit. I was pretty frustrated about it. And then I was obviously incredibly worried, and still am, for Zach Collaros. We have gotten no update for the team. He was never ruled out for the rest of the game, but he never came back. And I knew he wasn't going to come back. He ran off at his own 2 feet, but that doesn't mean crap for a concussion injury, as that's what I think everyone is kind of assuming. I've seen some people online trying to play doctor, thinking, oh, he got rocked last game and whatnot, and you know what it is? It's the exact same thing as when Mark Scheifele got injured against the St. Louis Blues, and who's the idiot, the Blues coach? I can't remember who it was. It's funny, unironically, he's a good coach, but it was a stupid thing he said. Jim Montgomery, yeah, and he said that Scheifele was injured from this hit. He wasn't injured. He wasn't injured from this other one, and Montgomery was trying to play doctor, essentially. To which, of course, our coach said that he didn't know where Monty got his medical degree, and that was a stupid thing to say. And you know what? Coach Arneal was right. But it is what it is. Riders get roughing the passer penalty on this. Chris Streveler goes in, and Marcus Sales would actually shortly after get hurt for the Riders. So I can't remember. I don't know what Marcus Sales hurts here. I'm genuinely. I saw the replay, and this is just a case of me missing it. So we'll have to see in the injury report when we do our Canadian Football Central video whether that's a leg injury, upper body injury. I don't know if maybe he goes down weird. I from the replay I saw in the arena. In the stadium, sorry. I wasn't sure what he got injured, but hope that he's okay. At the end of the day, I don't want any players getting hurt. Either team, Bombers, Riders, never hope for injuries. Bombers, though, push. Castillo misses a 50-yard field goal attempt. Still 13-12 Winnipeg. It was a windy day, I will say, but Castillo misses 2 field goals here, and I think if you're Castillo, you want to have at least one of those. But it is what it is. Castillo has also bailed us out of games that we had no business winning. So I'm not going to harp on him for that. Riders push, and the Riders challenge for defensive pass interference near the start of the fourth quarter, and it fails. Brett Lothar hits a 41-yard field goal, making this 15-13 for Saskatchewan. The Riders' defense goes offside. There's a good pass for Brady Oliveira, and then Castillo misses a 48, and Saskatchewan gets tackled on the 1-yard line. And then, unfortunately, just right after it, Bombers with a lot of guys on that pass rush there are on the rush to try to tackle him in the end zone, get that safety, and tie this game. And I don't blame the Bombers for going for that, because that's a huge difference right there. But they connect and they move the chains down and get far away from their own end zone. Trey Vabble then takes a defensive pass interference penalty, which again. That wasn't the one that I thought was horrible, but that was he takes a defensive pass interference penalty. Brett Lothar hits a 33-yard field goal, making this 18-13 Saskatchewan. Bombers running the ball a lot, and then at this point, Streveler throws probably one of the worst picks I've seen in recent memory. This is a pick that Zach Collaros would never have thrown. I mean, people joke around about how Zach Collaros throws picks. But the picks that Collaros usually throws are either ones where no offense if the receiver loses the battle for the ball. Or ones where he's throwing kind of he's throwing that arm punt, that long ball that's so far that, it's in about as perfect of a spot as you can get, but sometimes the guy's in double coverage, whatever it is, and it just doesn't end up going their way. So, is what it is. Bombers take a defensive pass interference call. I don't like this call, but at the end of the day, the Bombers didn't play any offense in the second half of this game. Take all those penalties out of there, whatever. I'm not, the Bombers didn't lose this game because of refs. They did not. I think if Collaros stays healthy, there's a chance that the Bombers get this going again. But the fact of the matter is you need to have a next man up mentality. I'm sorry. When Collaros goes out, I understand Chris Streveler is not the talent that Zach Collaros is. I don't think that's news to anyone. But it's one of those things where at that point, it is his responsibility to bring this team to where it needs to be. At the end of the day, that's what all these guys get paid to do. So it is what it is. Brett Lother hits a 35-yard field goal to end it. Final score, 21-13 for Saskatchewan. The Riders win both the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl this year. So kind of sucks that Winnipeg didn't get the split here, as I think that was the hope. This is also why I was really harping that the Bombers needed to win that game against the Alouettes before this, because it was very possible that we could drop both games. And we dropped both games. The Bombers are now 500, 6 wins, 6 losses. And next week, we are playing against a pretty darn good Hamilton Tiger Cats team. So hopefully the Bombers can get back on their feet. Again, no clue what the situation of Zach Collaros is. But with some of the hits that he's been taking, with him getting a bit older, eventually in the next year or two, of course, the Bombers are going to be starting to look for that next guy to be leading the franchise. So at least as a quarterback. Brady Oliveira is the man leading the franchise, but you know what I mean. At the end of the day, though, I hope that he's okay, in the sense of if he plays football, if he gets back, I hope that he's actually healthy back and we're not rushing him back. If he never plays another game of football ever again, I hope he makes a full recovery so he can spend all the time with his wife and children and all that. I'd be crushing for any sort of long-lasting damage or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I hope they do whatever is best for the health of Zach Collaros and his family and whatnot first. So, bit of a shitty loss. It is what it is. But let me know what you guys thought of this game in the comment section down below. I'm curious. And make sure you guys leave a like if you haven't already on the video, and subscribe if you have not. And we'll see you next time.
Can they take the lead on this drive?